My name is Lucie Pinson. I am the founder and director of a French-based NGO named Reclaim Finance, which is affiliated with Friends of the Earth France, an NGO for which I worked for many years as a campaigner on private finance. It's when joining Friends of the Earth France, and I started working on the responsibility of the financial institutions and in particular banks in climate change and social injustice.
In 2020, you received the Goldman Prize for your work on stopping finance to the coal industry. How would you describe the status of the industry at the moment, considering the increase of coal consumption in Europe and countries such as Germany as a result of the war in the Ukraine?
So it's too close to say if it's like gonna stay or if it's just like a short increase of coal consumption. We don't see financial institutions going backwards and canceling their previous commitments. So a significant amount of them are still committed not to support the building of new coal projects. What really matters is to what extent the existing coal infrastructures are going to be used. Are they going to be used at the high level as we have seen in the past year, or are we going to organize a closure in the coming years in order to align with 1.5?
And what is exactly your unique approach of forming relationships with key institutions while publicly holding them accountable, as described by the Goldman Prize team?
We, however, contrary to maybe some NGOs that reclaim finance, we also applaud financial institutions when they are doing the right thing or the good thing. And we also try to work with them because we don't only want financial institutions, to take the example of coal, to adopt a policy on coal. So talking to financial institutions, explaining the reality of the sector, showing the data is an important part of our work. And the second thing is that before using a stick, you can use a carrot, and you can also talk and try to show to the financial institutions that it's also in their best reputational interest to act.
A report recently launched by Reclaim Finance reveals that despite the net zero pledges, the banks are still investing heavily in fossil fuels. What were the main findings of this work?
Financial institutions that are part of this alliance commit to align their financing portfolio with a 1.5 target and to reach net zero by 2050. However, what we try to look at in this report is to what extent this pledge is being met with concrete actions, and in particular actions when it comes to stopping financial services to the expansion of fossil fuels. So we were looking at the transactions to the energy sector to find out if there were still deals being made to some of the biggest oil, coal, and gas expansionists worldwide. And unfortunately, we found that 56 of the biggest members of the Net Banking Alliance provided $270 billion to the biggest fossil fuel expansionists. Basically, it's like on a very regular basis that financial institutions are breaching their own pledge in favor of climate.
How could we redirect this wave of interest in new investments on oil and gas in Africa that in some cases have the interest of local governments? to clean energy ones?
And I don't have the whole answer, otherwise I will definitely not be here. There are several things that needs to be considered. First of all, to remind that Africa has one of the biggest potential when it comes to the development of renewable energies, and that renewable energies are the best suite to actually meet the needs, the energy needs of the populations, mostly because they are decentralized, they can be quickly developed. And so they are the best chance for the communities that live currently off the grid and live very far away from the big cities. So renewable energy could provide energy to these people. However, what it requires is capital, obviously, and we need financial institutions to support this type of projects, maybe with the contribution of public financial institutions to guarantee the risk associated with projects in the continent. And another thing that you mentioned is obviously the positions of the local governments. And that's when the diplomacy is really important, and the question of transfer of technology, but also training for the workforces among the local communities, and also who is back about money, who is going to pay for that. And developed countries have a historical responsibility to support the transition in this country, to make sure that, for example, if you take the country of South Africa, the coal fleet is being dismantled, but at the same time, we do provide them the capital and technical support to develop renewable energies. That's really important, and I would like to believe that if the money was put on the table, even the local governments will give up on their plans, often to develop new gas projects in favor of renewable energies.
75% of investments are still directed to oil and gas. Considering the 1.5 target, is there enough time left for the financial sector and society as well to reverse course, to adjust transition to clean energy?
So first of all, 1.5 is a big challenge, but it's not out of reach. However, we will fail if banks and financial institutions not very quickly fundamentally reviewed their lending and underwriting and investment policies, for sure. We need to massively scale up investment into renewable energies and more broadly into the solutions. So renewable energy, but energy efficiency, also the grid that requires a lot of investment. We need to multiply by more than 3 this investment by 2030. But the money is here. The money is just not going to the right place, and it's going to mostly fossil fuels, and it's going mostly to the pockets of the shareholders.
You have recently said that the disinvestment policies of central banks are inefficient. Why do you say so?
Today they're mostly inefficient because they do not, for a long time, and still now, central banks are mostly focusing on their primary mandate, which is monitoring inflation. However, they fail up to now considering what are the root causes of inflation. And today, maybe the situation will change, especially in Europe, as we had some great statement by the ECB in the past months, which acknowledge that inflation is rooted in climate change and is rooted in our dependency to fossil fuels, and in particular to gas. So if you do understand that, and that the primary mandate of central banks is to respond to inflation and to monitor it, they must, in that case, target climate change and fossil fuel dependency.
In general, are you satisfied with the pace of the finance sector when it comes to decarbonization of investments? Maybe they are going as fast as the atmosphere requires in Europe, but what about Asia and the Americas?
Yeah, I'm definitely not happy about the pace. It's very slow, especially since the backlash on ESG in US, which offer good excuses, I would say, for also some other financial institutions to stop making progress on climate. And obviously, if the situation is already bad in Europe, it's even worse in the US and in Asia, where almost everything remains to be done.
How should we reform the financial sector in developing countries such as Brazil to deal with the climate emergency?
To look at what is being done in Europe, I would say is a bet shot to be on the right track and to avoid standards that are being influenced by the US. Because in the EU, we do think more and more and implement into the regulation double materiality approach, so making sure that financial institutions not only try to protect themselves from financial risks related to climate change, but do also mitigate their own impact on climate and on communities. And as long as we do operate through a single materiality approach, as the US is doing, so only looking at financial risk, we are set to fail the transition.